Welcome to the Cup of Nurses podcast.
What's up, guys? Welcome to Cup of Nurses podcast. We're your host, Matt Sautrick, and myself, Peter Findra. This is a podcast where we tackle current health news and hot nursing topics one conversation at a time.
Welcome, guys. Thank you for whoever listens. Keep on listening, guys. We love you guys all. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Ring that bell. Give us some feedback. Give us some stars. We prefer 5 stars, but if it's 1, we understand. We'll, get better.
If it's 1, don't even waste your time.
Yeah, don't waste your time. Just leave it alone, Give us the 5. So anyways, today we're going to talk about iridology. It's a study of the iris, and supposedly it's able to predict different types of diseases. And also we're going to talk about vaccinations, how they work, different types of vaccinations, and we'll break down the flu vaccine.
Yeah, South Iridology.
Yeah, I feel like vaccinations had a bad rep recently with all this fake news going on social media, right? There's this whole hype about vaccinations are bad. And I mean, to be honest, I looked at it myself because we both got into conspiracies before. So I was on top of it too. And honestly, I think it's a little fad that happened.
Yeah, it definitely is. The anti-vax movement was started by a celebrity. I'm pretty sure it was a porn star that started all this. And I'm serious.
Serious?
Yeah.
I didn't even know about this.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was a porn star that started doing all this. And I guess she's a celebrity, so she's famous. So the word got out, and she kind of pushed this agenda, started her own community, and that's where we're at here. People are not getting vaccinated as much as they should, and it's starting to become an issue.
And there was a lot of outbreaks, right? There was in, I think, Ohio. There's a few schools even that had measles, mumps, and we never heard about an outbreak of mumps. And, recently started back up when all these people started, not vaccinating their kids.
Yeah, I'm not sure what her thought process was, but it's definitely not the most educated thing to do.
I'm sure she, did it for the right reasons. She read some conspiracies, maybe watched some Alex Jones, and she said, oh my gosh, these vaccines are injecting little mini robots into my body and they're maybe collecting my data information. I don't know. It's a little wild out there. That's my mind right now. But yeah, so I'm sure she did it for the right reasons, but I'm sorry, sweetie, whatever her name is, you are wrong.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't even know what her name is. I haven't seen any of her videos either, so I don't know who she is, but I know that's how that started. So,
she's a filmmaker, huh?
Yeah, I guess. Actress
Actress.
of some sort.
I mean, everybody needs to make money, right?
That's what I'm saying.
I heard strippers make good money, so.
Hey, man, I'll be a dancer for some cash.
I don't want to give out the sources here, but I found out one of them can make $5,000 a night. It's not
Really?
Bad, man. I wipe shit for a living.
Yeah, imagine the ones
she's
that
making a lot of money on the pole.
All right, imagine the ones that dance in Florida or California, those top-notch strip clubs. Yeah, Club 11 in Florida.
We need to ask for it. Not everybody has an ass. So.
Yeah, hey, you can shake it, make the money, pay the bills, But yeah, don't be that one porn star with
It's the oldest profession in the world.
Exactly. Take it off with iridology.
Yeah, iridology.
So hard to
what
say.
is the science?
So iridology is actually a pseudoscience. So it's not backed up by the scientific method. And iridologists, people that study iridology and do iridology, they could look at your iris, and depending on the shape or particles you have there, or just little signatures in there, that's supposed to predict which organ is flawed or which organ is diseased. So they basically look at your eye, and they have a graph of what part of the eye affects what organ, and vice versa. And that's kind of how they base off their theory.
It's also reflexology, which is basically the feet are all connected to different types of organs. So if you massage the inner part of the foot, it kind of affects the stomach, or if you massage the pinky, it affects the eye. And my grandma has that giant chart in her downstairs basement, so I wonder if that's actually a pseudoscience as well.
Sure. We could look that up, but yeah, I've seen that a lot, and I know sometimes they tell you if you have a headache from the side or something, then you could move your 2 fingers together, and it's supposed to go away. And I tried it before, and it actually worked. Maybe it was a placebo effect, but it worked for me a few times.
I mean, we're only discovering so much. Look at the whole mind-body connection. That's a new thing, right?
Yeah.
But did they test the pseudoscience to find out the results?
So this is a pseudoscience. So there was in Australia where these researchers gathered vast amounts of data, and they looked at other studies with 17 different alternative therapies than what we're used to here in the west side of the hemisphere. And one of them was the iridology. This was in 2015. And their research showed that iridology, it's so hard for me to say that, it was clear that it has no effective evidence at all. So it was basically proven ineffective. And then another study in 2005 took 110 participants, and they were each diagnosed with a different type of cancer. And they had an radiologist come in and try to diagnose what kind of cancer they have. And that study also showed that radiology was of no value.
So it was like a double-blinded study.
It was a double-blind study, so the researchers didn't know who had what kind of cancer, and nor did the radiologist. All they know was that there was some cancer going in, and some people didn't even have cancer. And radiology showed no value whatsoever. So this is pseudoscience. It's completely garbage, nonsense. There hasn't been any studies out there that prove that it is right in any way, shape, or form.
So they took 110 people, right? 68 of those people had one of the 4 cancers: breast, ovarian, uterus, prostate, colorectal. That's 5. And 42 did not have any evidence of cancer. And they, took this guy that's an iridologist, I guess.
Yeah, they said you could just prove what kind of cancer you have just by looking at your eye.
And he wasn't able to show any significant value in his method.
Yeah. So basically, it's all nothing.
And we actually looked it up in the Chicagoland area, and there's actually 3 doctors around like a 25-mile radius that actually you could go to and make an appointment to him. That's interesting.
Maybe you should make an appointment, see how this works. I'm kind of curious.
We could also show him the research and let him know what's up.
Yeah, what if he has his own research? But if he has his own research that he conducted, that's kind of going to be skewed. But if he has some research that's like done by somebody else, like a third party or something.
I feel like before you even get into the study of the eye, what you do is you ask the person, like, how his lifestyle is. You ask him what kind of, diseases run in his family. I feel like you ask him what kind of medications he's on and all this other stuff. And then you're able to, like, even me and you, like, if you ask those questions, you're able to kind of, like, gauge to see how healthy this person is. And you're able to gauge just a little bit, and then that could kind of sway your results when you're looking at the iris. You never know.
Right. Yeah, that's true. Like, if your mother has diabetes but your father doesn't, and then they both have, some kind of a cancer, like your mother has like a breast cancer and your father has pancreatic cancer, and then they both have heart disease, you're mostly going to have heart disease compared to diabetes.
Yeah. So these doctors can't tell you have a disease, but they're able to target a specific organ. So if Peter's says he has diabetes in the family, I'll look into his iris and I'll say, I think you're
prone to diabetes.
Your pancreas is kind of, showing symptoms of heavy toxicity or something. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm sure there's ways to, skew the results and kind of. I'm sure that this radiologist based his information more off your history and your genetics compared to just like your eye.
Yeah.
Because what if someone fell on my eye? That would kind of skew everything. Like, I'd say if I had to cut my eye, you wouldn't be able to do that, would you? Hopefully you asked that, because what if I have, like, shrapnel on my eye and I never told them? Yeah. Not that I was hit by a grenade or anything, but yeah.
This is debunked. I wish we had the gavel, like we said again, kind of hit it. Move on to the next topic.
Don't waste your time with iridology.
Yeah. It's not backed up by science. So anyways, topic right now, we're going to talk about vaccinations, but first, what is the immune system? So as we know, the immune system is like a body's defense system, and it protects us against invaders, infectious diseases, organisms, and most of the time our immune system is very, very efficient. It keeps microorganisms out, and it has ways to get rid of them even if they invade and go through the skin or whatever the open pores are. However, some pathogens can overwhelm the immune system, and when that happens, you can have serious illnesses. Some different things that are very toxic to it, or not toxic, that are pathogens that affected us back in the day were like measles, mumps, polio. These diseases our body wasn't able to handle, and we finally, in our current society, we're able to get rid of it for the most part, right? And that's very beautiful. And some of these pathogens like go unnoticed, and our immune system more than likely is not able to kind of pick up on them, right? Because you have to develop antigens. So the role of a vaccination is to kind of teach your immune system and to help your immune system identify this threat before it becomes a serious problem. And it's able to recognize this by, antigens.
Well, yeah, so your body makes antibodies for these antigens. So when a virus comes at you, they have like antigens around them.
Yeah.
Like it's like, say with your DNA, so you do like A, B, and C. So if virus is labeled A, B, and C, you create antibodies against the A, B, and C, so then it recognizes them and knows how to fight it off. And there's vary. Some could be CBD, or CBD, like CBA, things like that, and that's your body recognizes it and it produces antibodies, so it knows how to attach itself and then destroy that antigen with its antibodies, which is pretty cool. And it's happening continuously, nonstop. Like me putting my hand on my computer, there's so much bacteria on my computer. There's so much, I don't know about parasites, but there's definitely viruses everywhere, bacteria everywhere, and we're constantly fighting them off. Some bacteria is good, like we have healthy gut bacteria, which we don't destroy. But if that gut bacteria leaks out to like a different organ or different part of the body, it could be toxic to that.
Just like that Crohn's disease, right? Once the inflammation happens, you start getting the leaky gut, and you could develop infections like that because it enters where it's not supposed to, like the bloodstream.
Yeah, it's crazy. And some of these, like Matt said, like polio, measles, tetanus, and like whooping cough, they've killed millions and millions of people in the past. So it's very beneficial for us to develop like vaccines for this.
It was once a threat, and now it's eliminated in our society. And like we said, it emerged a little bit because these anti-vaxxer movements. But really, vaccinations are a beautiful thing, and they've stopped a lot of problems. Yeah. But we have to kind of keep it under control because there's something called the herd immunity, which I'll kind of touch base about. So how does a vaccine exactly work? The way it works is, like I said, it trains our immune system to recognize a threat, and our system does this by certain molecules from the pathogen. So when it's introduced, which is what we call the antigen, it creates that immune response. So just imagine these little antigens are just floating around your body, and whenever there's a foreign invader, your body's able to recognize it because you gave that live virus or unactivated virus to your body, and it's like a book of memories, and it's able to recognize it and able to act quicker and neutralize the threat, right?
That's true.
Let's see here. And the way this happens is we have to realize that vaccinations not only affect one individual. Just because you got a vaccine doesn't mean you're going to be vaccinated. It actually works. It's called a phenomenon called the herd immunity. So the way it works is eventually if a society gets enough vaccinations, I don't know what the exact percentage is, it's able to create immunity, and it could prevent outbreaks, because what happens is essentially that bacteria or virus, it needs a host, right? It needs to live in some organism and have its foothold there. Right. If you have enough people in society that have this vaccine or this immunity, this host or this bacteria eventually just going to die out.
Exactly.
Because it can't live anywhere.
Yeah, let's say like a first grade class, for example. There's kids there. Let's say it's 30 kids. Let's say 25 of those are vaccinated, 5 aren't. Even though those 5 kids aren't vaccinated, they're probably of getting like measles, mumps, or a certain kind of infection like that is very small. Just because the fact is that 25 other kids are vaccinated and those 5 aren't. So they kind of herd around them, and it's a lot harder for a vaccine to pinpoint those 5 kids compared to those other 25. Viruses, they can't tell who's immune and who's not until they actually go inside our bodies and start moving around and replicating.
And for those that don't know, a virus is actually non-living. And a lot of people don't know that. And that's what makes a virus so much harder to fight off, because it's actually non-existing. Your body's not able to even identify it that way. Right. That's why a lot of people that have the flu, they go to Jewel and they buy all these prescription pills to help the infection, get fought off quicker. You're not really doing your body any favor. You're just masking the symptoms that this infection is creating. Yeah. So you taking cough syrup, you're really suppressing a cough when your body's symptom is a cough because it's trying to get rid of something that's not supposed to be there. So sometimes taking specific medications aren't really doing any benefit. You're just helping yourself feel better from these symptoms. Yeah. Just like having a fever. If you're having a mild grade fever, that's okay. Just let it be. You don't need to take Tylenol right away, because when you raise your body's temperature, your body's able to actually fight off the infection more efficiently, right? Because
some bacteria and viruses can't thrive in that kind of temperature change. So that itself makes them inactivate the viruses and bacteria themselves.
Yeah. And we're being counterintuitive, and oh my God, I'm 100.1, and we take a Tylenol, and your body knows what it's doing. Just let it do its thing, in a way.
Yeah, but if it does become a high grade fever, that's when it becomes an issue. That's probably when you should try.
You should probably, yeah.
Yeah, but there's a good threshold for your body knows what temperature gradient to go to kind of destroy or inactivate these kind of bacteria or viruses.
And one cool little statistic I found that according to the World Health Organizations, 85% of the world's children have received vaccines that protect them against like the things that we talked about, TB, tetanus, measles, tuberculosis. And these vaccines have saved over 7.5 million lives.
Yeah, I know Bill Gates is working on malaria vaccine. He was working on malaria vaccine, but I think he's also trying to completely get rid of the malaria-bearing mosquito, which is pretty crazy.
I think China, they're testing that gene editing CRISPR technology, and they were able to eliminate, I think, almost all of malaria in that specific island by creating mosquitoes that don't carry it. And they were able to breed with other mosquitoes, and of course, with mutation, they were able to get rid of malaria.
Interesting. Yeah, I know we talked about it before in this previous episodes about CRISPR, but that one in China as well, where the guy created two twins that supposedly are immune to HIV, which is pretty. We'll see how that happens.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool. Well, he took the embryos and he used CRISPR in them. So by like changing one gene, he then changed all the genes in the embryo. So it's pretty crazy. Like just by altering like one or two things, the two kids are completely different than what they could have been.
I'm pretty sure in our lifetime, in the next few years, we're going to see the elimination or the cure for HIV.
Yeah, we'll see. You never know. We'll work on it, I guess. Maybe a vaccine, HIV vaccine.
So whenever that company becomes public, you guys should probably invest some money in stocks for those that are into that kind of thing, because that's a company that's going to really rise up.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so back to vaccines. There's 4 different types of vaccines that are usually given to individuals. We'll go over them real quick. The first one is probably the strongest one. It's the live attenuated vaccine, which takes a weakened form or an inactive form of the germ. So it can be a virus or bacteria or whatever, and then it gets injected basically into you. This does have limitations because if I have an organ transplant, if I have a kidney from somebody else or a heart, my immune system is always weakened because we're always giving like steroids to individuals because you don't want them to develop an immune response to the organ that they received. So it's kind of risky and not recommended for you to get a live attenuated virus just because it's easier for it to spread.
If you got a transplant.
Yes, if you're an organ transplant recipient. But these live attenuated vaccines, they're usually your MMR, your rotavirus, your smallpox, your chickenpox, and your yellow fever. Another virus that we tend to give people is inactivated virus, which takes basically the dead germ and then injects it. And it's safe for more people. But the thing is, it doesn't provide as long of an immunity as like the live vaccine, just because the germ itself is dead.
So that's why the flu vaccine has to be given yearly.
Exactly. That's why the flu vaccine, say with hepatitis A and polio and rabies, you get polio a couple of times before you finally get rid of it. And then the third one, which is pretty interesting, it's called subunit, recombinant, polysaccharide, and conjugate vaccines. So these vaccines they're actually really strong. They take like either a protein or a sugar or just a capsule of the actual bacteria and virus, and they inject it into you. So you're not getting a whole virus, you're getting a piece of it, which is actually really good on a molecular level because it's you could pinpoint it with more accuracy. Less mistakes happen. But this does lead to a strong immune response, but a lot of times you have to give like boosters for that as well. And that's like your hepatitis B, your HPV, your whooping cough, which is part of your DTaP vaccine, and your shingles, pneumococcal, and meningitis. Those are the ones that are just usually get like a subunit of the actual bacteria or virus itself.
That's interesting. And we always screen patients for pneumococcal vaccine.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm just like refused.
Yeah, and what's cool about this is that you're not actually giving the virus or the germ itself. You're giving a portion of it, so anybody could receive it because you're not creating any kind of a reaction for the most part, toxic reaction. And a third one, it's a toxoid vaccine, which basically
fourth one.
Fourth one. I'm sorry. What did I say? Third.
Third is cool.
Okay, fourth one, toxoid vaccine. So this, you're not actually introducing the bacteria or virus or the germ to the host. You're just giving the byproduct of it, like a toxin of what the virus produces or what the bacteria produces. So your body kind of learns that this toxin is toxic, and it kind of finds a way how to fight this toxin off. That's another way. And that's your diphtheria and your tetanus, all part of the DTaP.
And I remember when I was in nursing school getting vaccines, some patients or some people aren't able to develop like a booster immunity, and they have to be given the shot more often. Didn't you have that issue when before travel nursing you had to get
Yeah, I
some
think
kind
it
of
was
booster?
my MMR booster that I needed or something. Yeah, so it just depends on what kind of vaccine you get because there are different forms of each vaccine. For the most part, just like it's probably based on your clinic's preference. But it's we get the flu shot every year for the most part, and the flu shot is actually not just one variation of influenza. It's like a bunch of variation influenza that they give you because we're not sure what kind of influenza is going to be occurring this winter or whenever, for the most part. Yeah.
What about the anti-vaxxers belief? So there's 4 misconceptions that the anti-vaxxers believe that you shouldn't get vaccinated, and this is probably the biggest reason why this all started spreading, where there was outbreaks of specific viruses and diseases in America.
Yeah, so initially, these anti-vaxxers believe that the MMR vaccine itself leads to autism and the development of autism. That's proven false, basically because the reason autism is on the rise isn't really because of the vaccine, it's because the autism spectrum has grown. So different developmental disorders we now throw into the spectrum of autism. So there's more disorders that are just called autism now than they were before. And if you think about it, less people are getting vaccinated now. There has been attributed to any kind of decrease in autism at all.
Yeah, and we actually 2 podcasts back we talked about the link between autism and all these like skincare products that like females use and the high levels of estrogen in the womb, right? That's correlated to that. So it might be an external source that's causing autism in kids and this developmental disease, not the vaccines themselves.
Yeah. This effect argument, just the argument itself, saying that MMR causes autism is completely false because we have seen a decline in MMR vaccines and vaccines in general, but there hasn't been any kind of decline in autism. So it doesn't even make sense in the first place.
It's probably the chemtrails.
Probably, man.
Like there's like those planes spraying those streaks of fumes or whatever up in the air. You don't even know what they're releasing.
Well, who knows? Maybe. Another thing, what they were pushing is they said this preservative called thimerosal is how you say it. They were saying that was actually linked to autism, and that's been proven false, and that hasn't really been used in vaccines since 1999, and it hasn't been shown to attribute to anything autism related. Yeah, some shit.
Another one, sometimes they believe that infants are too young to get a vaccine, but I think they did research that you could get literally all 14 vaccines given to you at once, and it's not going to affect the baby. Like literally, your body's able to handle that capacity. Like there's a 0.1% chance of something going wrong.
Right. And like think about it, it's an infant, it's a baby. Like that baby's walking around, it's crawling around, it's it's getting exposed to multiple viruses, bacteria, toxins all at the same time. I mean, how often if you have a baby or if you dealt with children at all, you turn around 1 minute and you turn back around, they have something in their mouth. Anything, they'll just put whatever they want in their mouth, and they play with everything. And basically, a baby is just like a breeding ground for bacteria, and they fight it off easily.
And there's that whole debate that like let the kid play in dirt, let them get dirty because your infant's immune system or the baby, like it's developing because it's being exposed to everything. Like if you have that crazy mother that's bleaching every single counter that the baby touches, like you're not giving your baby any kind of bacteria for them to be exposed in, because that's how their immune system like is working. Imagine it like a muscle, use it or lose it, right? If you're working out, you're pumping the muscle, it's going to grow. Same thing with the immune system. If you're not exposing it to any common threats, it's probably going to weaken.
Yeah, it's not learning anything. It's not learning how to fight off infections. If you keep your little baby in a box or in a bubble its whole life, and then it goes to first, second grade, it's going to get sick every day.
Yeah.
Because it has no built-up immunity. It hasn't learned how to fight off anything. And, and the child grows older and is more susceptible to infections and disease, and that just causes a whole issue of problems. Another thing is that a lot of people are saying that natural immunity is better. I mean, is it really better? It is, technically it is better, but would you want to expose your child to measles so they could develop the antibodies for it? No, that's ridiculous. It's much more efficient and more healthier to give an MMR vaccine than to have the child get measles and have it learn how to fight off itself. Because what if it can't? You know, it's like 1 out of 500 chances of death if you're exposed to measles, compared to like 1 out of 1 million your chance to having like an allergic reaction to a vaccine. That's not a risk I'm willing to take for my kids.
You shouldn't. You
No
shouldn't.
way.
Speaking of like natural immunity, I'm digressing here a little bit. I was researching something that when you change your perspective, like you're more positive, let's just say, or you're meditating and you're calming down your mind. There's this Dr. Joe Dispenza, and he actually showed within 4 days, if you change your like mindset in a way, you're able to increase your natural immunity IgA levels. It was studied by actually 50%.
Yeah. Wow.
And back to the topic of optimism and all this energy stuff, how it affects things, but it does.
Yeah.
This has nothing to do with vaccinations. Like you shouldn't focus on natural immunity, but there's ways to strengthen your immune system, make your body more effective against fighting infections.
Yeah, like the whole mind and body perception, and there's a theory is that your brain is linked to your organs are linked to your brain, and it all works together as a group.
I think we are a pretty intelligent organism, and your body and your mind are separate, and we're always talking, we're always communicating, and it's your body knows it's your body. Man, I wish the body's so interesting. It's amazing. Even just talking about this immunity, like how the heck is your body able to recognize threats and have literally a book of 500 bacteria and viruses, whatever, to fight it off and know when it's happening, and a little macrophage comes in, swells it up, and
Right.
it kind of.
And consciously, you know what's going on. You have no idea what's going on in your GI tract anywhere. It just works. It's an automation. It just knows how to do it, and that's what it does. You don't think about it. You don't when when you have a flu. You don't picture your white blood cells attacking influenza and engulfing it and destroying it. No, it just happens by itself.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
And I think the fourth one, a lot of anti-vaxxers believe that these vaccines contain unsafe toxins. They are toxins, but in the small increments that they're given, they're approved by the FDA, and they are considered safe. For example, one of them, they are afraid of formaldehyde. And a lot of people don't know that formaldehyde is actually... See, we talked about formaldehyde in nail polishes last time, and in eyelashes. So maybe there's a higher concentration that's being exposed to, which could be leading to autism. But here, if you're getting a vaccine, this formaldehyde is not any significant threat to your own body. And formaldehyde is actually produced in your own body through the own
The GI tract.
metabolic system, yeah.
Yeah, it's a byproduct in the GI tract, and it's needed for some reactions happening in your gut. So, you make more of it than the amount that's in vaccines. Doesn't really make a difference.
Yeah. What is your viewpoint on, for example, flu vaccines?
Flu vaccines...
Because we're obligated to take them, unfortunately, in healthcare, they would basically tell you not to show up to work or wear a mask.
Flu vaccines, I don't know. I'm not really for the most part, even though I do get them because I don't have a way out of it. But there's so many different strains of influenza that I feel like it's a small percentage of them that they get right. There's been times, I probably say every year I get the flu shot, and I'm probably sick with the flu every year.
Yep.
I think flu shots are great if they could pinpoint what kind of influenza it's going to be, and pinpoint it, and then put that in the actual vaccine itself, compared to giving us 5 or 6 different strains of it and hoping one of them is going to be the one for this year.
Because a lot of people don't know that. So when it comes to the flu, you heard about the swine and all this stuff. The reason why every single year it changes is because this virus is mutating. It's getting smarter. It's just imagine bacteria, right? We over-medicate with antibiotics to specific bacteria, and sometimes this bacteria figures out a way how to develop immunity. And then we get, for example, MRSA, which is a multi-resistant bacteria that's able to withstand specific, antibiotics. Right. And you have to give it the heavy-duty antibiotics to actually get rid of it.
Right. Well, you want to see what goes into a flu shot in that case?
We can. But personally, if I was able to give it myself, I would say I did, and I wouldn't give it. But unfortunately...
Yeah, like I said, I'm for it if they could pinpoint correctly which influenza it's going to be. Then I'm for it. I'll take a flu shot over getting sick with the flu for 5 days or a week. But right now we don't have
they're not as effective as they should be.
Exactly. Yeah. So a flu shot. So what goes in a flu shot? Well, first of all, in the influenza virus itself, there's like 5 or 6 different strains because it's hard to pinpoint which one's going to be which, and that's sometimes why it's not really effective because you could get them wrong.
And it's ineffective, not ineffective. Is it a dead virus into the flu shot?
No, it's not a dead virus. They do the
Inactivated vaccine.
So yeah, technically,
Okay.
yeah. So I guess it is dead. Yeah, so it is a dead virus that they do, and a lot of times, even though the flu shot might work for me, it might not work for you. Just because, let's say, influenza type B affects me, you might have the influenza type A. So there's so much mutation going on with influenza where it's really hard to pinpoint anything that's going on, and especially it varies by location and everything. Like I'm not sure each state, but each climate or each region of the United States gets a different kind of flu vaccine based on whatever research that they do to decide on it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they take like the amount of or the type of influenza that has been affecting that area for a certain amount of time, and then they kind of base it off that, give them numbers, I guess. Another thing that goes there is formaldehyde. Like Matt said, that's naturally produced as a byproduct in our GI tract, and its role is basically to prevent any contamination or any kind of bacterial growth in the actual vaccine itself, because we know that viruses and bacteria are real small and it's very easy to contaminate certain things, and this you obviously don't want to contaminate because you want to just give that flu vaccine, not any kind of other bacterial or viral infection. Just kind of makes it sterile, more sterile for the most part. Another one is aluminum salts, and what this basically does is that it makes your body react more strongly to the influenza. So it kind of produces a greater immune effect, even though it would be the same amount of virus. So it kind of allows us to get injected with less of the virus, but produces a greater effect.
Aluminum salts, interesting.
Yeah, pretty cool, right?
And then next one is a thimerosal.
Yeah, I don't think they use that anymore, but maybe somewhere in the world they probably still do.
Because they could probably use like an antibiotic form now. It was like an antiseptic method to stop the contamination of the product that they were giving.
Yeah, so basically thimerosal, that basically keeps the vials. So initially, now when you get your flu shots, you just have one injection and that's one flu shot. Back in the day, they had a vial and you would draw up the vaccine and then give it, and then put the vial in the fridge, and out of that same vial you would take out some more, give it to the next individual. So that the thimerosal, I don't think it's used anymore. And we don't even have multi-use vials for vaccines anymore.
No.
That was just basically used as that, just to keep more clean, more sterile for the most part. And then the chicken egg protein is also used. That's why people with egg allergies usually should avoid it. But I've read online that it doesn't really produce any kind of a great effect on someone that is allergic to egg. But I guess if you're really, really sensitive and really allergic to egg, that's when you might affect it. But for general public, even though if you might have an egg allergy or sensitivity, it should still be okay for the most part.
Yeah. A lot of people don't know that this protein is literally, the virus is injected into like this protein, and it literally helps the vaccine, aka the virus, grow and replicate. So it grows in its fertilized egg.
Right? Is that pretty cool?
That is pretty cool.
I know, that's pretty interesting. They grow a virus in a chicken egg.
And that's why, just like you said, the egg allergies.
Yeah. Another one is gelatin, and that's basically protects it from change in temperature. So you have Jell-O. It stays Jell-O in room temperature and stays Jell-O in when you put it in the fridge. That kind of gives it more of like a temperature gradient barrier. That's what it really does.
And the last one, they give a little bit of antibiotic, and basically, if a bacteria is exposed to it, they could possibly kill the vaccine that you're giving. So it's an antiseptic, and it helps prevent any bacteria from growing. Usually they give gentamicin or neomycin. And that kind of summarizes that flu vaccine. And regarding the effectiveness of flu vaccines, I did a study, and I didn't look at the statistic, but only 40 to 60% of people actually get the flu shot because of like the stereotype and the media and everything that they hear about it.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm for it if they could, pinpoint the influenza accurately. I'm completely for it. But as a medical professional, I'm required to get it, so I'm okay with getting it.
Can't you like wear a mask and not have to use it?
Yeah, you can, but you're gonna wear
a mask for like 4 months
out of the year. Yeah, I'm not gonna do that. It's uncomfortable. It's like some rooms you just mouth would sweat all day.
Imagine having like the plastic gown on, gloves, and that mask
Right.
that you're breathing.
Just a perception, like me being a nurse, always wearing a mask. Patients are gonna have the perspective that I'm sick,
Yeah.
always, or I'm gonna infect them with something.
Why is he taking care of my father if he's sick? You know, that kind of stuff.
Right.
Sit your ass home.
Exactly. Yeah. So get vaccinated. Don't take your medical advice from a porn star. Listen to us instead.
Yeah, listen to us, guys. Cup of Nurses. So we talked about. What did we talk about first? Jeez, I'm blanking out here already.
Well, we talked about vaccines.
But before that, we talked about iridology.
Mm-hmm.
That's what that is, and basically, it's pseudoscience. It's not credible. If you've heard about it or are interested in it, you're probably not going to get any benefits from the study.
Yeah.
And vaccines, we talked about what they are and what the makeup of them and that the importance of them. And you should believe in vaccines, guys, because it helped prevent real threats and back in the day that we've been fighting for, like polio and all that.
Right. Couldn't agree more.
See you guys next week, guys.
Have a great day.
Take care.
Get your booster shots.